Good morning, welcome to Insiders. A curious twist in the asylum seekers debate this week, with both sides accusing one another of deliberately inflaming the issue. Ask them and they'll tell you they're interested only in a calm and measured discussion. Well, it's not as ugly as 2001, not yet anyway, but calm and measured, it's not. It seems that any new angle, no matter how small, is enough to run a legitimate issue right off the rails.
There's a new test tonight for Australia's asylum seeker diplomacy with Indonesia.
I have noticed a bit of press about immigration
A bit of press. A bit of press. There were 70 articles on the weekend.
A boatload of 78 asylum seekers issued a distress call at the weekend.
Well made. I hadn't noticed, but thanks for bringing it to my attention.
Don't just stop you with me, Minister.
No, but look,
I'm stating the bleeding obvious.
Senator, I know there's a problem.
Temperatures rising, I'm about to explode.
The people have been taken off the vessel and are on board the Oceanic Viking.
It's got me hypnotised. Everybody step aside.
New tactic, everybody. Call yourself in distress.
We did the morally right thing.
The boat is going round in circles in the middle of international waters.
Australia and Indonesia are in discussions as to the safest place to accommodate these people.
Australia will come to your rescue and bring you on down.
The Prime Minister's made it clear he's not discussing the nature of the conversation he had with the President of Indonesia.
There is nothing remarkable in that.
We need to actually come up with a better solution, not the Indonesian solution.
It sort of rhymes a bit with the Pacific solution.
He's expecting the Indonesians to do the heavy lifting, and we're going to foot the bill for it.
I wouldn't dignify your question with a response, because the serious Senator, you know, you're actually asking what is the cost of a human life.
Do you think it's time everyone, including yourself, approach this issue with a little more compassion?
Our approach to asylum seekers has been consistent with everything we said to the Australian people prior to the last election.
So, how can I help?
If we get foot and mouth disease through our cattle stocks in the northern half of our state, if we get typhoid, tuberculosis, particularly into our Indigenous communities, we're devastated.
There could be the occasional terrorist in a boatload of people.
These are deeply divisive, disgusting remarks, and they do not belong in any mainstream Australian political party.
The Prime Minister, in an outburst of contrived indignation, seeks to distract attention from the comprehensive failure of his border protection policies.
I reject any person, any statement which suggests that asylum seekers are or are likely to be terrorists. Full stop.
That he has unleashed this debate for a base political motive, which is to inculcate a culture of fear in Australia.
We should approach this issue in a calm and rational way, not with the hysteria, the character assassination, the venom and the viciousness that the Prime Minister displayed today.
What we are left with, Mr. Speaker, is a crude exercise in rank politics on the part of those opposite.
I don't think the last 48 hours reflect well on Australia.
Division required.
Our program guest this morning is the Foreign Minister, Stephen Smith, who will be joining us from Perth. But first, with the help of the panel, we'll check out the Sunday papers around the country. Glenn Milne, now the asylum seekers on board the Oceanic Viking have gone on a hunger strike.
Yeah, the male occupants of the boat have gone on an indefinite hunger strike. This is starting to look pretty ugly for the government now. This boat, the Oceanic Viking, is a customs vessel. It's picked up 78 of Sri Lankan asylum seekers, and it's part of the Indonesian solution. It's taking them back to an Indonesian port. They're now on a hunger strike. There's a 12-year-old girl who's quite sick on board. There are other problems, according to Brendan O'Connor, the Home Affairs Minister. But it's not starting to look like the fair and humane treatment that Kevin Rudd promised that he'd bring to this issue. His problem, of course, is he's playing two constituencies here. He's playing strong on border protection to the blue-collar workers who supported John Howard at the Tampa election in 2001. On the other hand, he's trying to say he's fair and reasonable and humane to the left elites. You can't do both, and I've got to say it's starting to look like a stretch.
And Phil Curry, Afghanistan, and an analysis of the Australians killed and wounded in Afghanistan has turned up a rather surprising result.
Yeah, Tom Hyland from the Sunday Age Barry has written this morning that the casualty figures in Afghanistan this year have been sort of the highest, but the trend is shifting from those guys supposedly at the pointy end. The SAS and the Special Forces aren't taking it as bad as the ones in the Mentoring and Reconstruction Task Force there. That's where the predominant sort of casualties are happening, wounded and killed and stuff, and it shows. So those helping the Afghans rebuild and so forth and train the Afghan military are just as exposed now, if not more, to the dangers. Maybe not from direct combat, but they're getting picked off by IEDs and other things. So it's the murky picture gets murkier over there.
Just demonstrates there is no easy task in Afghanistan. No. And a related story in a way, apparently the Defence Minister has been pressuring the Dutch to stay the course in Afghanistan.
Yeah, the Dutch have said for some time now they're going to leave in 2010, and they've been sort of quite crucial to those mentoring guys, providing security, helicopters and combat troops and stuff and things like that. And we have expressed concern about them leaving. Well, Faulkner, the Defence Minister, raised it with their minister at NATO on Friday in Slovakia, and the Dutch minister has spoken to one of his local papers and said, I've been approached by various countries, Britain, Australia, the US, but he said the Australians are particularly worried about us leaving.
And that's because that would leave Australia exposed.
Yeah, we'd either have to
give the Rudd government a bit of political cover, that's right. While they're engaged there, it's reason for us to be engaged.
Yeah, but not only the risk of exposure, but the risk that Australia would have to potentially up to double its troop commitment to maintain the level of foreign troop presence in that province. And there's lots of resistance within the Australian government to any escalation of our commitment.
And helicopters and so forth. We have to send equipment as well, and that's expensive. So.
And Misha, in Sydney, a high-profile cocaine case, and it's thrown up the name, or not the name, anonymously, but the suggestion that a senior New South Wales politician is in some way involved.
I know, a politician in a dope dealer's diary. Who would have thought? The Sunday Telegraph does in fact report this, Barry, and they don't name the MP, but they do quote them anonymously, saying that they admitted knowing Richard Buttrose, who's at the centre of this case, but denied buying or using cocaine. Direct quote, "I've never bought cocaine from Richard Buttrose. I've never bought cocaine off anybody." The MP said to come in and That's just outrageous. And they explain that they're a family friend. They know the Buttrose family is how they say they came to be in this book, but certainly they'd probably be feeling a little bit nervous about the eventual revelation of their name, potentially.
OK, well, the Prime Minister is at the East Asia Summit, and the shirts have been handed out, as you'll see here in the footage just in. It's always a highlight of any of these summits, though I think this time the shirts were slightly upstaged, as you'll see here by a random cat that just wandered onto the red carpet. Who knows how that happened? OK, well, that's the Sunday papers, and now we'll move on to our